Yes, people. How are we all doing? Welcome welcome all to a Liverpool Daily News Roundup. We got some news last night. We got an interview with Jordan Henderson today that's going to be the main focus of this video. Touch on the Trent Alexander-Arnold news. Touch on the Quanseh news as well. A couple of things to talk about today for your lunchtime viewing. But if you're new here and you're not already, make sure you hit that like button, hitting that subscribe button, and turning on that notification bell so you don't miss any more content. So, let's start off with the initial news first. So, late last night, it was confirmed by James Pearce that Trent Alexander-Arnold will be out for 2 weeks. That makes him a little bit of a doubt for the Wolverhampton Wanderers game. He's completely out of the international duty with England for the upcoming games against Scotland, one of them, and I think Ukraine is the other one. So he's completely out of those games. He's a little bit of a doubt for the Wolves game, but he's a fast healer in his career. So there's optimism, really, that he should be back for the first game after the international break, which is massive for us. Obviously, Connor Bradley, who was earmarked as his backup for this year, is out for an extended period of time with a stress injury. And Joe Gomez, we still don't know what the situation is with Virgil van Dijk's ban. We don't know if Quanseh is going to be back for that game, so Joe Gomez may need to be deployed as a centre-back again, which it leaves a lot to be desired, really, in terms of if Trent Alexander-Arnold isn't available, how we're going to set up that defence. So it's a good thing that he should be back for that game. And the other news is Jarrell Quanseh was earmarked to be part of the under-20 England squad. He was called up for that one, and he is withdrawn as well. Whether that is due to injury, I haven't been able to find out yet. So hopefully we get an update on his situation soon. Maybe it's just like Canate. He's seeing that he's getting some first-team opportunities at the minute, and he wants to stay in Liverpool, work with the manager, work with the staff, see if he can almost sort of guarantee a spot for Europa League and Cup games, which would be a really admirable thing to do for the youngster, and I give him all the credit in the world if that is truly his stance. But the big stuff today, former Liverpool captain Jordan Henderson has done his first interview since he joined Al Ettifaq in Saudi Arabia. He joined in the summer for around £12 million. He's had a decent start to life out there, but he caused a lot of controversy when he left due to the situation in Saudi Arabia around human rights and gay rights, etc., and the fact that in the past he'd been such a big ally of the LGBTQ plus community, with rainbow laces being the main sort of standout thing. And he upset a lot of people who saw him as such a strong ally. And he's done his first interview since his departure, and it doesn't make for very good reading from multiple perspectives, to be honest. It really doesn't. And I'm going to go through it here today with you now. It'll be a bit of a longer news on, because I'm going to really go through this article with you today. So, first off, it's done on The Athletic by the brilliant David Ornstein and Adam Crafton. Adam Crafton's the one who uncovered the whole Mason Greenwood situation. And, David Ornstein. David Ornstein is a fantastic journalist himself. So, they start off by asking about the situation as to why he left Liverpool. All his pre-season preparations appear to be focused on return to Liverpool. Jordan Henderson has agreed that that was the case. He'd had conversations with the manager about who we were looking to bring in, the plans for the season, how we were going to set up, this, that and the other. And he focused this summer on making sure that he was in the best shape possible for his return to the squad. And then David Ornstein asked when it first changed, and Henderson says, there were a few things that sent alarm bells ringing. I've got a very good relationship with Jurgen. He was very honest with me. I won't go into detail about the conversation because it is private, but it put me in a position when I knew I wasn't going to play. I knew there was going to be new players coming in my position, and if I'm not playing, as anybody will know, especially the manager, that can be quite difficult for me, and especially when I've been at a club for so long. I've captained the team for so long. Especially when England's a big thing for me, with the Euros coming up, and then there was an approach from Al Ettifaq to the club to see if it would be possible for me to go. The reaction from the club again wasn't to say no. At that moment, I felt as though my value or the want for me to stay with the manager and within the club, maybe it shifted. I knew that time would come at some point. I didn't think it would be now, and I've had to accept that. I've got a very good relationship with Jurgen, with the owners of the club. That'll be forever. What we've achieved in the past 12 years has been incredible, but at the same time, it was hard for me to take that. That is that makes for disappointing reading, because we've seen players in the past who have accepted their departure graciously. The likes of Adam Lallana and James Milner come to mind. Both of those players accepted their departure graciously. They knew their time was coming to an end at the football club. They appreciated what had happened and they moved on. Now, Jordan Henderson's got a very strong mentality to suggest that he believes he should still be starting week in, week out for Liverpool. I'm not going to knock that. But this just comes across as very egotistical, because it's all about me. Me, I. Ultimately, it is his own football career. But when you're the captain of Liverpool Football Club, you have to think about Liverpool Football Club. And this just comes across as a very self-centered sort of thing. And the way he keeps going on about how he felt that it was wrong that the club didn't say no to Al-Ettifaq when they first come in, I think is a little bit disingenuous, because you've got to understand the way the club operates. You are not untouchable. Jordan Henderson was the player that, some people will argue it, started the recruitment spiral into where we are now, because back in 2021, both him and Gini Wijnaldum had expiring contracts, and Michael Edwards, the director of football at the time, made it clear that he doesn't believe either of them deserves a new deal. He didn't believe that either of them deserved a new deal. Gini Wijnaldum didn't get his new deal, but Jurgen Klopp, the manager, went out massively on a limb and campaigned for this new deal for Jordan Henderson, which eventually arrived. It was a 4-year deal for a 31-year-old, which goes against everything that Michael Edwards really stands for at the football club, or stood for at the football club. He's not here anymore. And the fact that it's now almost been thrown back in the manager's face, to me, just seems a very disingenuous and very poor from a player who, as always, the one thing I will say about Jordan Henderson, for the most part, he's conducted himself very well. And this just seems like a little bit of a kick in the face, because we made an exception for him, and he had to understand that there was a very good chance that wouldn't have been seen through in this sob story. This, they didn't want me, that they were nasty, that doesn't stick for me. That doesn't stick for me. And then Adam Crafton comes in and says, was there a part you thinking, I'd just like to fight for me for a bit, or fight for me to stay? And then Henderson comes out and says, if one of those people said to me, now we want you to stay, then we wouldn't be having this conversation. I have to think about what's next for me in my career. Now, that's not to say that they forced me out of the club, or they were saying they wanted me to leave, but at no point did I feel wanted by the club or anyone to stay. So what were you expecting, Henderson? Were you expecting on the opening day Jurgen Klopp to wheel out the red carpet for you and go, don't leave, we love you, we can't have you leave, you this, that, the other? A better player left this window than Fabinho. A better player left. You are the you wear the captain. You're no longer the captain, but you wear the captain. But you're also a football player, and at the end of the day, Liverpool had to move on. We had to move on, because there is life after Jordan Henderson, and to me this just seems very self-centered, very much I'm the centre of attention, I'm Jordan Henderson, and this should be all about me. And that doesn't work that way. You knew we were bringing in midfielders, you knew that the youngsters were stepping up, you knew that game time was going to be limited because you weren't up to the standard last season. You cannot expect, after what you performed with last season, the standards you dropped last season, which were very poor, to be guaranteed a starting spot week in, week out next season. It doesn't work that way. If you were to ask me, and I think I said at the start of the summer, the players we'd signed when Jordan Henderson was looking to leave were Szoboszlai and McAllister. For me, I had Jordan Henderson down as our 7th choice midfielder. He was behind Szoboszlai, he was behind McAllister, he was behind Fabinho, he was behind Thiago, he was behind Curtis Jones, and he was behind Stefan Bajcetic. All of those were ahead of him in the pecking order for me. You cannot sit there and ask to be a starter ahead of any of those. You can't, because you're 33 and you were not performing at that level last season. It just comes across as very much, I was good 4 years ago, keep playing me. It doesn't work that way, lad. That's not how you build sustainable, successful teams, which is what Liverpool need to start doing and what they are taking steps to doing now. And then, Ornstein asks why Saudi. Henderson says, I'm at the latter stage of my career. I want to be happy playing football. I don't want to be sitting on the bench and coming on for 10 minutes in a game. And I knew that it would have an effect on my chances of playing for England. So then, let's pose another question. You're Jordan Henderson. You're 33 years of age. Provided that you were to curtail your wage demands a little bit, I'm sure there would have been Premier League interest in you. So what was the reason for Saudi? Because ultimately, from an outsider looking in, playing week in, week out in the Premier League, to me, gives you a better chance of making England squads than playing week in, week out in the Saudi League. But that's just me. What do I know? Then Adam Crafton, brilliantly again, says Liverpool brought in midfielders before when you've been at the club, Thiago, Naby, and you always responded. There have been times when players came in and I thought, is Henderson going to be in trouble? And then he come back strong each time. Where you're tempted to think, okay, they're not saying they're desperate for me to stay, but I'm going to prove them wrong and get back into the team. And then Henderson says 100%. That was the whole thing about this training regime over the summer. I was working so hard and people saw the shape I came back in. But when I got back, it was the same situation, which made me think, actually, this time doesn't matter what I do. This is the killer for me. This part here is the killer for me. So you've went away and you've done some running. You've done some boxing. You've got a really good Instagram post out of it. Fantastic. Jordan, we play football. You're not fighting Floyd Mayweather. You were here for football. How can you expect the football club to make a judgment on you when you've not kicked the ball at pre-season? That is the part that gets me. Did you want Liverpool Football Club to go, okay, yeah, you might not be the best footballer, but you threw some good jabs on the pads in pre-season. You had a whiteboard with some inspirational quotes written on it in pre-season. Are you suggesting that all the other players didn't do that? Which then, I think that we have a very professional squad, which then suggests that a lot of these players would do that. I mean, Trent Alexander-Arnold cut short his holiday to ensure that he was working for pre-season. To suggest that the other players wouldn't be doing that is a bit disingenuous, almost. Yes, you were working hard, but all the other players were working hard. How can you expect the football club to make a judgment on your situation, to make a judgment on your future, without having seen you kick a ball at pre-season? Because we play football. We don't do 15-kilometre runs. This is the thing. And then Ornstein said, did you consider any other options, or was it full steam ahead with the Al-Ettifaq approach? And then Henderson basically said, a lot of other clubs should have known. I'd love to sit here and say that every club wanted me, but the reality was they weren't. I didn't want to play against any club that could have really played against Liverpool. I love the club. There's a different challenge, and I felt it wasn't right for me. And then he said, Adam Crafton asked about like a Brighton or Brentford, and Henderson said, I wanted something that would excite me. And that's not to say those clubs wouldn't excite me, because they are great clubs and they come with really different challenges. But it needed to be something that I felt as though I could add value in and try something new, a new challenge, and for different reasons. And this opportunity with Stevie in a totally different league and a totally different culture was something completely different. That maybe it would excite us in terms of the project that was put in front of us, in terms of the league, and using my experience to try and help with that in many different areas, and feeling that the people value. It's nice to feel wanted. I know Stevie really wanted me. I know the club really wanted me to go, and they wanted us to try and build over the next few years something that is here to stay and be one of the best leagues in the world. That little underhanded jab, I saw it. I read through the lines and saw it. It's nice to feel wanted. It's nice to feel wanted. Are we forgetting that Jurgen Klopp had that talk? I think it was Dave OCKOP, who's been very solid with the Saudi news this summer. He was the one who came in and said Jurgen Klopp has held a talk with Jordan Henderson and said that he would quite like him to stay, but he's going to have reduced game time. So it wasn't that you weren't wanted. It's the fact that you, as a footballer, as an egotistical footballer, could not accept the fact that you were not good enough anymore. That is the stone cold fact. It's not about trying to pin the blame on Liverpool and suggesting that they were the bad guys. They done everything right. They played it by the book. They were completely open book with you. They said you will not play as much this season, and your ego could not handle that. So you've thrown your toys out the pram, and you've tried to spin the narrative. Well, that's not going to work, Jordan, because I can see through it. And no one's seen asked about the money. Now, the money was a big thing with this situation. There was reports of £700,000 a week, which is false, apparently. There were reports of around 300 to 350, which seems to be the sort of benchmark. And then today, there was a report from Dave OCKOP that said he's actually on 130,000 a week, which I highly doubt. It seems very much a PR spin, you know. This article comes out, it gets a lot of negative backlash. Now all of a sudden Henderson's on less money. I don't believe that. David Ornstein, when it was first reported, said Henderson was going to be on, I think it was quadruple the wages, and he was on, you know, a lot of money. It was either quadruple or double, but he was on a lot of money. It was close to around £300,000, £350,000 a week what he would be getting offered. And Ornstein asked about that. You know, we know what the Saudi League's like. Is money a factor? And then Henderson says, that was the hardest thing. People will see this club come with loads of money, and he's just gone, yeah, I'm going. But in reality, that wasn't the case at all. People can believe me or not, but in my life and my career, money has never been the motivation. Ever. So Jordan, this is the thing. This is coming across as very much a Jordan Henderson sort of hate thing. It's not. I still have a lot of respect for what Jordan Henderson achieved at this football club, but doing this just sits horribly wrong with me. It sits horrible with me. When you departed, we treated you with the utmost respect. Your farewell video was a little bit dodgy, but it was a farewell video. I wasn't bothered like some others were. But this just comes across as so nasty and vitriolic. It's horrible. And you're treating us like idiots. We've watched football for years. We know the ins and outs of football because we're not stupid. We've seen this happen before with China. We've seen it happen this summer with Saudi. We know what happens with these sort of things. And to suggest that money wasn't a motivation for you is disingenuous, because what happened in the summer of 2021? What happened? You were writing PR spins. You were doing all this spinning of narratives to try and say that Diego Simeone wanted you, PSG wanted you. You were going to leave Liverpool if you weren't offered a better contract because you believe you're worth that, and top European sides are after you. If it wasn't about money, why would you not accept the deal that was offered? Because let's get it straight. It is about the money, and I don't knock a player for that. Football is a business. A football career is not a long one. You've got to make the most of it. I agree. But then don't come and barefaced lie to us. Money was a factor. We all know that. We all know that. But to say it's never been a motivation is crazy for me. Because if money wasn't a motivation, for me, you would have chosen a project like a Brentford or a Brighton. Because yes, maybe the Saudi League project and making it one of the best leagues in the world is going to be great. But like you said, it's going to take 5 years. And newsflash for you, Jordan, you are not going to be the face of it in 2 years, let alone 5 years. You're not. I don't think Jordan Henderson's going to have as big of an impact on the Saudi League as he thinks he does. It's not going to work. So then, Crafton said, you know, is the 700 grand true? And then Henderson says, no, I wish it was. He says he's on good money, but it's not the numbers that you reported with. And then Stevie never mentioned money. It was all about the project. And then Ornstein came in with the big hitting questions, and this is where I have to give a lot of credit to The Athletic for this report. A lot of these reports, a lot of these interviews avoid the big topics. They avoid the major topics. They want to toe the line. They want to make sure it's a nice PR spin so they can have future working opportunities with them. Fair play to The Athletic. They have hit hard with this interview. Ornstein asks about the backlash he faced from the LGBTQ plus groups and the wider game, the comments, the damning, they were urging not to take it. We're having second thoughts. And then Henderson said, every day it was a difficult time, definitely. Don't get me wrong, I don't want people to feel sorry for me. It was just difficult to make that decision. I've been at a club for so long, a club that I love, and I have a lot of respect for the fans, the owners, the manager, my teammates. To leave my teammates was a big thing, but in the end, I felt as though it was the right thing for them as well. But from the outside, and people who don't know me, it's a lot more challenging to understand. There can be a lot of criticism, a lot of negativity around me as a person, and that was difficult to take. But I just feel as though, because I do care about different causes that I've been involved in and different communities, I do care. And for people to criticise and say that I turn my back on them really, really hurt me. Can you blame them, Jordan? Can you blame them? So, let's put the barefaced facts on the table here, Jordan. Saudi Arabia has it as being illegal to be gay. That is the stone cold matter of fact that you can't argue that. And you're now suggesting that people can't feel hurt by the fact that you've who've been such a public ally of them, and massive credit to you for that, you're now saying that they shouldn't be hurt by the fact that you seemingly have turned their back on them and turned their back on the morals and the standards and the beliefs that you supposedly held for a bit of cash. You've got to understand that that is a viewpoint that can be held and a viewpoint that may or may not have a lot of backing behind it. You may still believe in those causes, but you've got to understand what you've done. You've got to understand the stance you've taken. It's a really, really bad thing for me personally. I can understand why a lot of people would feel really, really hurt who are part of those communities. And then he says, you know, he was persuaded. He knew there was going to be criticism, so he had to make a decision on what was best for him and his family. He understands the LGBTQ community frustration, and he says he's sorry that they feel like that. My intention was never ever to hurt anyone. My intention has always been to help causes and communities where I felt like they had asked for my help. Now, when I was making the decision, the way I tried to look at it, as it was, I felt though, by myself not going, we can all bury our heads in the sand and criticise different cultures and different countries from afar, but then nothing's going to happen, nothing's going to change. So, Jordan, you're a smart man. You are a smart man. You don't captain Liverpool Football Club for as long as you've done without being a smart man. You don't have such a vocal voice as the captain's captain is what you were called, without being a smart man. How then is someone as smart as you almost nonsensically believing that you can single-handedly make a change in Saudi Arabia? Because I don't believe that's going to happen. And then Adam Crafton says what he's saying is that by going and engaging, that brings a bigger possibility of change in some way. And then Henderson skips around the question. He says that people know my views and beliefs, and I think someone having those views and beliefs in Saudi Arabia is a positive thing. And then Crafton presses again. Crafton presses like a prime Adam Lallana in Liverpool, like a prime Sadio Mane in Liverpool. The press is intense. He questions him about Qatar and the whole situation in Qatar and the situation around the gay rights and the gay people in Qatar. And Henderson says, firstly, I'm not a politician. I never have been, never wanted to be. I've never tried to change laws or rules in England, never mind a different country where I'm not from. So I'm not saying that I'm going to go there and do that. And so he says, the positive I see is that from their Saudi side, they knew that before signing it, they knew what my beliefs were, they knew what the cause and campaigns they'd done in the past, and not once was it brought up. Not once have they said, you can do this, you can't do this, and I think it can only be a positive thing to try and open up like around Qatar. In the end, around Qatar, having a World Cup, they shined a light on certain issues, which I think in the end, I might be wrong, but they changed some rules and regulations to be able to host the World Cup, and I think that's positive. That's the way you try and create a positive change, and I'm not saying that I can do that, I'm one person. And then at Liverpool, a little thing which meant a lot to people was the Rainbow Laces campaign, and then when you were announced, they like blacked it out, or colour washed it. That's it. So it was just black and white. Are you going to do the same thing here? And then Henderson says, I wouldn't rule that out, but at the same time, I wouldn't do anything to disrespect the religion and culture in Saudi Arabia. And now you've hit on the reason why there was question marks in the first place. You've circled back to the point. They didn't want you to go there because you're such a vocal ally, and it is against the culture and illegal to go there. And now you're saying that your morals are going to be compromised because you don't want to compromise beliefs. So you've backtracked in your own interview. This is the issue. This is why people were calling you out. This was the worry, and it's come to light. And I feel very sorry for these people because they had a lot of respect for you. It must feel very heartbreaking. I'm not part of the community. I know people who are. And it must feel very heartbreaking for them to have someone who they see as such a vocal ally, such a prominent figure, turn their back this much. It really must do. And then Henderson says about the video, I didn't know anything about it, And then he says, if I wore the rainbow armband that disrespects the religion, that's not right. So everyone has to be respectful of religion and culture. And again, we're back at the same point. You say one thing and then you backtrack and say the other. You don't try and patronise people, basically. That's the stone cold fact I'm getting from this. I'm not going to carry on reading because they press him again and you don't really get anywhere. You really he tries to keep avoiding the subject. He says some really stupid things about other topics. Like it's a little bit crazy. I'm not going to carry on. You can read it if you want. It's on The Athletic. It's really disappointing to see, though. I'm not going to really discuss massively about the LGBTQ plus side. There are wonderful Liverpool creators out there who are part of that community who can discuss it better than I can. I'm here to talk about a purely footballing perspective. And for a purely footballing perspective at this point, this interview comes across horribly. It just seems like Jordan Henderson's pointing the blame at everyone else and saying, I shouldn't have left, I'm still good enough. When in reality, look at the stats, there was a decline. Look at the results, there was a decline. There was one common denominator, you. You were the common denominator. And to suggest that you felt that because you'd done what every footballer does in pre-season, which is stay in shape, you feel that the club should have just automatically kept you and started you because on that basis. That is wrong. That is wrong. And then you'll say, he didn't say that. He said he just wants to be kept around. No, because the whole point was, earlier on in the interview, he said, when I don't start, I'm not very happy and it doesn't look good on the club. What are we doing here, Jordan? Look, you're a man who's done a lot of good PR in the past, and this comes across horribly. This was a horrible interview. And it's a sour note to end what was a really good Liverpool career on. It's a sour note. It comes across as very patronised. It comes across as very childlike. It comes across as very ignorant. And I can understand people's frustration. And I've seen a lot of people today, a lot of vehement Jordan Henderson defenders, come across and be very disappointed in you. And I think that's very telling. That is very telling because last season, they were not at that point. So this has done a lot of damage to Jordan Henderson. And a bit of his Liverpool legacy will have been tarnished by the ways departed here, because the likes of Lallana and the likes of Milner, they left with grace and decorum. The likes of Fabinho, he left with grace and decorum. Henderson hasn't, and that's the really disappointing thing. But I'm going to call it there, people. I'm going to love yous, I'm going to leave yous. If you're new here, you're not already, make sure you hit that like button, hitting that subscribe button, turning on the notification bell so you don't miss any more content. In a bit, everyone. In a bit. Ta-ra.